They found the glove 2 miles from her house. It matched the suspect's gloves in the doorbell footage. The FBI rushed it overnight to a laboratory. It generated more coverage than almost anything else in this investigation. Analysts went on television. Comment sections exploded. People were certain this was the break, the glove. 2 miles away. DNA inside it. This was the moment. And then investigators traced that DNA to a restaurant worker near the scene who had no connection to the case whatsoever. Dead end. Let that land for a second. The glove that everyone was talking about. The glove that got rushed overnight to a federal lab. The glove that generated wall-to-wall television coverage. That glove led to a restaurant worker. No connection, no link, nothing. Now here's what you need to understand. That glove is not the only dead end in this investigation. The FBI also deployed a helicopter. Mounted on its skid was a piece of technology they called sophisticated, a signal sniffer, a device built for one specific purpose: to find the unique Bluetooth heartbeat of a pacemaker implanted in the chest of an 84-year-old woman. That helicopter flew deliberate grid patterns over Tucson for weeks. It found nothing. 2 of the most publicized technological breakthroughs in this entire investigation. Both empty. And here is the question that nobody has fully answered at 100 days. What does that silence actually mean? 'Cause that silence is not nothing. That silence is evidence. And when you understand exactly what the signal sniffer was designed to do, why it failed, and what 3 confirmed explanations for that failure tell us about where Nancy Guthrie actually is right now, the picture of the case shifts in a way that most people watching from the outside are not prepared for. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand this investigation in a way that almost no other coverage has given you. This is True Crime Files documentary. Every fact in this video is verified and sourced. Links in the description below. Go check them yourself. That is how this channel operates. We do not guess. We do not speculate and call it analysis. We go through the evidence the way it deserves to be gone through. If you are new here, subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because this case is at a turning point that most coverage has completely missed. And by the time this video ends, you are going to understand why. Drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. And tell me this, did you know the signal sniffer found nothing? Did you know the glove was a dead end? Because if you didn't, you are not alone. Most people following this case from the outside don't know either. Keep watching. Before we get into the technology and what the silence tells us, I need you to understand who Nancy Guthrie is. Because this case gets technical fast, and when it does, it is easy to lose sight of the human being at the center of it. She is not a case number. She is not a timestamp. She is a person. And the more clearly you see her, the more clearly you understand what was taken on the night of February 1st. Nancy Ellen Long Guthrie, born January 27, 1942, Fort Wayne, Kentucky, 84 years old, mother of 3 children. Savannah Guthrie, the longtime anchor of the Today Show on NBC. Annie Guthrie, Cameron Guthrie. She moved to Tucson, Arizona more than 50 years ago and built her life there. Same neighborhood. Same house, same garden she tended every season for 5 decades. Same church service every Sunday morning without fail, watching it on her computer with friends when she could not make it in person. She built that life piece by piece, and she built it to last. She raised her 3 children largely on her own. Her husband Charles died in 1988 during a mining trip in Mexico. Nancy was 46 years old when that happened. She was left with 3 children and a house in the Catalina foothills, and a choice about what kind of person she was going to be in the years that followed. She didn't collapse. She didn't ask for sympathy. She kept going. She tended her garden. She sat on her porch and watched the desert evenings settle over the foothills. She watched her daughter Savannah become one of the most recognized journalists in America. She watched her children build their lives. She stayed in her house, the one she had made into a home over 50 years of living. She was not a public figure. She never wanted to be. She was simply a woman who had worked hard, raised her family, and earned the right to a quiet life in a place she loved. And she had a pacemaker. a small implanted cardiac device that regulated her heart rhythm and connected wirelessly to an app on her smartphone. It transmitted her cardiac data continuously to a secure network accessible by her medical team. It logged timestamps. It kept a record of everything happening inside her body. Sheriff Chris Nano said it clearly at a press conference. Nancy could not walk 50 yards by herself. She needed daily medication. She was, in the sheriff's own words, a vulnerable adult. She was also, as investigators quickly realized, carrying inside her chest the most sophisticated piece of evidence in this entire investigation. A device with 6 to 7 years of battery life remaining, confirmed by investigators working directly with the manufacturer. A device that has been running continuously since the night she disappeared. A device that has been broadcasting a unique signal into the air every 2 to 3 minutes for more than 100 days. A signal the FBI spent weeks trying to find, and couldn't. Let me walk you through the confirmed timeline, because everything that follows depends on understanding these exact timestamps. Not approximately, exactly. 9:48 p.m., January 31st. Nancy arrives home after dinner with her daughter Annie and Annie's husband. Her garage door opens. 9:50 p.m., garage door closes. Sheriff Nano said it himself at a press conference. At that point, they assume Nancy is inside, probably going to bed. Think about that moment. The garage door closes. The night is quiet. The Catalina Foothills neighborhood is dark and still. Nancy is home. She is safe. Everything is normal. That is the last moment this case feels like a normal Tuesday evening. Because 3 hours and 58 minutes later, everything changes. 1:47 a.m., February 1st. The doorbell camera at Nancy's front door goes dark. A masked figure had appeared on her porch. The FBI released still images and a short video clip on February 10th. The figure was dressed entirely in black, ski mask, nitrile gloves, a 25-liter Ozark Trail backpack from Walmart. Armed with a handgun, that figure tapped the camera lens twice, lightly, rhythmically, the way someone taps a surface they have touched before. When tapping didn't disable it, the figure reached into a nearby potted plant and covered the lens with foliage. Calm, deliberate, unhurried. And at that exact same moment at 1:47 a.m., the camera went dark, 2:28 a.m. Nancy's pacemaker disconnects from the app on her smartphone. That is a 41-minute window. Camera goes dark at 1:47. Pacemaker disconnects at 2:28. 41 minutes of complete external darkness. No camera, no phone signal from Nancy, no digital trace of any kind from inside that house. Just silence. The Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed this timeline publicly. CBS News confirmed it independently. The National News Desk confirmed it. This is not theory. This is the documented sequence of electronic events on the night Nancy Guthrie disappeared. These timestamps are the foundation of everything that follows. Now here is what most coverage got wrong about that 2:28 timestamp, and this matters enormously. Because the misreporting of what 2:28 means created a false picture of what investigators were actually looking for. The pacemaker did not stop at 2:28 a.m. Nancy's heart did not stop. Dr. Lawrence Epstein, a cardiac device expert from the Zucker School of Medicine at Hofstra Northwell, addressed this directly and publicly. He confirmed that the pacemaker itself continued functioning after 2:28. The disconnection only affected the remote monitoring channel. The app on Nancy's phone stopped receiving data. The pacemaker kept running. Nancy's heart kept beating. What stopped at 2:28 a.m. was the wireless connection between Nancy's pacemaker and the app on her phone. And here is the technical detail that makes that specific disconnection so significant to investigators. Nancy's pacemaker uses Bluetooth low-energy technology. David Kennedy, a former NSA hacker and the inventor of the signal sniffer used in this investigation, confirmed this to CBS News directly. He explained that the pacemaker disconnecting from the app at 2:28 a.m. is itself diagnostic. It tells investigators something specific about the device. Bluetooth low energy. A power setting built into certain modern pacemakers. Specifically so the device lasts for years without needing replacement. And Bluetooth low energy has a natural range of just 10 to 15 feet. 10 to 15 feet. That is smaller than most living rooms. At 2:28 in the morning of February 1st, 2026, Nancy Guthrie was more than 15 feet away from her own phone. She was not in the next room. She was not in the backyard. She was gone, and her pacemaker was still running, still transmitting, still broadcasting its unique digital fingerprint into the air every 2 to 3 minutes, automatically, continuously, because that is what it does whether anyone is listening or not. That fingerprint is what the signal sniffer was designed to find. Let me explain exactly what the signal sniffer is and what it was built to do, because you need to understand how sophisticated this technology actually is before you can fully understand how significant it is that it came back empty. Every Bluetooth device in the world has something called a MAC address, a Media Access Control Address. It is a unique identifier, a digital fingerprint, assigned to that specific device and no other device anywhere in the world. Two devices made at the same factory on the same day by the same machines will have different MAC addresses. They are that specific. Nancy's pacemaker has a MAC address. It belongs only to her device. Only to her. The pacemaker broadcasts that fingerprint every 2 to 3 minutes, automatically, continuously. It does not know it is being searched for. It does not know Nancy is missing. It simply transmits, because that is its function. That is what it was built to do every minute of every day for the 6 to 7 years of battery life it has remaining. The signal sniffer is a device that uses amplifiers and a directional antenna to scan the airwaves for that specific fingerprint. Morgan Wright, CEO of the National Center for Open and Unsolved Cases, described the process to Cold News in February. He said it like this: "The software runs continuously. It scans every signal it encounters. It eliminates everything it does not recognize until it locks onto the right one." Think about what that means. In a city like Tucson, there are millions of Bluetooth signals broadcasting at any given moment. Phones, laptops, smart watches, wireless speakers, medical devices, security systems. Millions of signals competing for the same airwaves. The signal sniffer filters all of them out, every single one, until it is left with one. Nancy's. Under normal conditions, Bluetooth Low Energy only reaches 10 to 15 feet. That is its natural range without any amplification. But David Kennedy told CBS News that with signal amplifiers and high-gain directional antennas, the effective detection range extends dramatically. Several hundred feet becomes achievable under the right conditions. The FBI mounted the signal sniffer on a Pima County Sheriff's helicopter. Law enforcement sources confirmed this to CBS News. A separate FBI source described it directly to News Nation, sophisticated FBI technology. Those were the exact words used. The helicopter flew slow, flew low. Deliberate grid patterns over the Tucson area, back and forth across the desert. The way you search when you know the thing you are looking for is small, and the area is large, and the only way to find it is patience. Every 2 to 3 minutes, somewhere out there, Nancy's pacemaker was sending its fingerprint into the air. The signal sniffer was listening for exactly that fingerprint. And the helicopter found nothing. No detected signal. No confirmed location. No public announcement of a hit. No press conference where investigators said, "We found something." Nothing. Now I am going to give you the 3 confirmed explanations for why that happened. I want you to hear all 3 before you decide what you believe, because they do not all point to the same conclusion, and one of them is something almost nobody in this case has said directly. Explanation 1. The helicopter was searching in the wrong place entirely. This is the explanation that most investigators and technical experts point to first when pressed on why the search produced no results. And it requires understanding one specific geographic detail that received almost no sustained attention in the coverage that followed. 6 minutes after Nancy's pacemaker disconnected from her phone at 2:28 a.m., a Ring doorbell camera on a residential back road called Camino Royale, 2.5 miles from Nancy's home, captured a vehicle passing through. 2:36 a.m., a vehicle heading south. Retired NYPD Detective Pat Brosman analyzed the footage and assessed the vehicle as consistent with a Kia Soul. Sheriff Nanos confirmed to NBC News that the vehicle's timing matched the abduction window and that it was part of the active investigation. South on Camino Royale leads to Interstate 19. Interstate 19 runs directly toward Rio Rico, Arizona, and beyond Rio Rico toward the Mexican border, 60 miles away. The FBI confirmed to reporters that its sub-office in Sonora, Mexico, has been in contact with Mexican law enforcement in connection with this case. Now think about what that specific geography means for the signal sniffer search. Former CIA and FBI agent Tracy Walder told People magazine something that most coverage buried completely. She said the signal sniffer requires the helicopter to be within roughly 30 to 100 feet of the pacemaker to pick up a signal. 30 to 100 feet. Jim Jones, a cybersecurity and digital forensics expert, told CBS Chicago the same thing in different terms. He said the pacemaker signal is quite weak, goes typically just a few feet under normal conditions. He called the entire signal sniffer deployment, in his own words, a long shot. A long shot. That is what a cybersecurity expert called the FBI's primary technological search tool in this case. Now think about the math. A Pima County Sheriff's helicopter flying grid patterns over the Catalina foothills needs to pass within 30 to 100 feet of wherever Nancy actually is to detect her pacemaker. The vehicle captured on Camino Royale was heading south 6 minutes after her pacemaker disconnected. Interstate 19 runs south toward the Mexican border. The FBI's Sonora sub-office is in contact with Mexican law enforcement. If Nancy was moved south toward Mexico in those 6 minutes after 2:28 a.m., a helicopter flying over the Catalina foothills was never going to find her, not because the technology failed, not because the FBI didn't try hard enough, because the signal was transmitting from somewhere the helicopter never flew. The search area and the actual location may never have overlapped. Explanation 2. The technology itself had serious limitations that the early coverage almost entirely failed to report. This is the explanation I want you to pay closest attention to, because it changes the picture of the signal sniffer deployment more fundamentally than anything else. David Kennedy is the former NSA hacker who invented the specific signal sniffer device used in this investigation. He is not a commentator. He is not an analyst watching from the outside. He is the person who built the tool, and he told CBS News something that should have generated its own news cycle. He said mounting the signal sniffer on a helicopter could actually interfere with signal reception. Metal structures, concrete buildings, physical interference from the helicopter's own frame and rotor system. All of these reduce the effective detection range of the device when it is helicopter-mounted rather than drone-mounted. He said specifically, and these are his exact words, that a drone would be more efficient, because a drone can cover greater distances faster and avoids the structural interference that affects a helicopter-mounted device. The helicopter, he said, was the quick stopgap. A quick stopgap to get a general location. Those were his words. The more effective version of this technology, the drone-mounted deployment that Kennedy himself said would be more efficient, was still being developed when the helicopter was flying. Think about what that means. The FBI deployed the signal sniffer in its less effective form first, because the better version was not ready yet. The helicopter was flying while engineers were still working on the drone that would have done the job more effectively. And former CIA agent Tracy Walder gave this technology a specific descriptor when she spoke to People magazine about how it works. She called it somewhat experimental. Experimental. That word is doing a lot of work. The FBI was deploying a prototype over the Arizona desert, a device that David Kennedy tested at his own house using off-the-shelf components before it was mounted on a federal helicopter, a device that, by its inventor's own admission, works better on a drone than a helicopter, a device whose effective range, the inventor said, needed to be within 30 to 100 feet of its target. Now combine that with a city where metal buildings and concrete walls were actively reducing the device's detection range. And now combine that with a pacemaker that may have already been 60 miles south of the search area when the helicopter first took off. The technology was real. The deployment was genuine. The FBI made a serious effort. But the combination of physical limitations, helicopter interference, and a potentially wrong search area means the signal sniffer was operating at a fraction of its theoretical capability from the moment it launched. And nobody said that clearly until now. Explanation 3. This is the one that investigators have not confirmed publicly. It is the one that requires the most careful framing, and it is the one your audience deserves to hear. When the FBI finds nothing, they say nothing found. When the FBI finds something they are protecting for an active prosecution, they also say nothing. Those are not the same silence. Think about how carefully the FBI manages information in a case this sensitive. They do not hold press conferences to announce investigative progress. They hold press conferences when they need something from the public. When they released the doorbell footage on February 10th, they needed tips. They needed someone who recognized that build, that mustache, that backpack. What they said publicly was the minimum required to generate those tips. What they have not said publicly is everything else. Sheriff Nanos told Cold News directly that certain information has been withheld from the public. Not because it needs to be kept secret, he said, but because we have to protect our case. We have to protect our case. The FBI has released no results from the signal sniffer search. Not that they found nothing. Not that they found something. They have released nothing about what that search produced. Now think about what else investigators have access to that has never been discussed publicly. Nancy's pacemaker manufacturer has been working directly with investigators since the earliest days of this case. The Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed in a February 17th statement that investigators are attempting to locate the device and are working with the manufacturer and other experts in the field to assist in that effort. Working with the manufacturer. Pacemaker manufacturers have access to device logs, transmission histories, connectivity records, clinical upload timestamps that show when remote monitoring stopped or when notable cardiac events were registered. All of this is stored on the manufacturer's secure network. The FBI subpoenaed that cloud data in the first week of February. The manufacturer complied. What those device logs show beyond the 228 disconnection timestamp has never been confirmed publicly. What the manufacturer's engineers told investigators when they reviewed the full transmission history has never been confirmed publicly. The public silence on signal sniffer results is not necessarily the same as the silence of a search that came back empty. I am not telling you the FBI found Nancy's pacemaker and is keeping it quiet. I am telling you that in a case where the sheriff is telling reporters we are withholding information to protect our prosecution, the silence around the signal sniffer results deserves to be read as exactly that. Strategic silence, not confirmation of failure now. Let me put all three explanations together, because separately they each shift the picture. Together they form something more important. Explanation 1 says the geographic search area may have been wrong from the start. A vehicle heading south 6 minutes after the pacemaker disconnected. Interstate 19, the Mexican border. The FBI's Sonora sub-office in contact with Mexican law enforcement. If Nancy crossed south, the helicopter search over Tucson never had a chance of finding her. Explanation 2 says the technology itself was experimental, limited by physical interference, and deployed in its less effective form while the better version was still being engineered. A quick stopgap, in the inventor's own words, not the comprehensive technological sweep that the coverage implied. Explanation 3 says the public silence around the search results is itself a data point. That investigators working with the manufacturer with access to cloud-stored device logs and transmission histories may have information about the pacemaker's current status that they are protecting for prosecutorial purposes. 3 explanations, all confirmed by named sources, all pointing toward the same underlying conclusion. This case was never going to be solved by a helicopter and a Bluetooth scanner. It was always going to come down to the evidence that Nancy herself left behind, and that brings us to where the investigation actually stands right now, not where the coverage implied it stood, where the confirmed facts say it actually is. The glove DNA,
Dead end. Restaurant worker, no connection.
confirmed by CBS News at the 100-day mark. The signal sniffer, no confirmed public results. No press conference, no location identified. and the DNA that came from inside Nancy's home. At 100 Days, CBS News reported something specific about where this investigation is truly focused. They reported that the case could hang on a single strand of DNA still being evaluated at the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia. A hair sample, recovered from Nancy's home, sent first to a private lab in Florida by the Pima County Sheriff's Department, then transferred to Quantico for advanced analysis, still being processed as of mid-May 2026. Former FBI Supervisory Special Agent Lance Leising told CBS News directly, a strand of hair found near the victim's last known location, such as in her bed, would be a high priority for the FBI. In her bed, not somewhere in the house, not in the hallway, not on the porch where her blood was found, in the place where Nancy slept, in the place where she was most vulnerable, in the place where the 41-minute window between 1:47 and 2:28 ended. Or think about what it means for a hair to be in Nancy's bed that doesn't belong to Nancy. Think about what it tells you about how close someone had to be to leave it there. That hair is not a long shot like the signal sniffer. It is not experimental technology. It is not geography dependent. It does not need to fly within 30 to 100 feet of its target. It is a biological sample at the most advanced forensic laboratory in the United States, being analyzed using the same genetic genealogy methodology that cracked the Golden State Killer case. After more than 40 years, let me explain how that methodology works. Because your audience has heard the words genetic genealogy for months, and most coverage has never fully explained what it actually means for this specific case. Joseph James DeAngelo, the Golden State Killer, evaded capture for more than 4 decades. He had never been arrested for the crimes he committed. His DNA was not in the FBI's national database of known offender profiles. He was, for all practical purposes, forensically invisible, until genetic genealogy found him. Anyway, here is how. Investigators uploaded his DNA profile to a public consumer database, not the FBI's criminal database, a public one, the kind people voluntarily submit to when they use Ancestry or 23andMe to find out where their family came from. The search did not need to find DeAngelo himself. It needed to find a relative, a distant cousin, a second cousin once removed, someone who shared enough genetic material with DeAngelo to register as a partial match. When that partial match appeared, investigators built a family tree, working backward and forward through generations, mapping every relative, narrowing the branches, getting closer and closer to the specific individual whose DNA matched the crime scene samples until they had a name. Joseph James DeAngelo, a former police officer living a quiet life in Sacramento, arrested in his driveway, convicted, sentenced to multiple life terms. That methodology does not require the suspect to have any criminal history. It does not require their DNA to appear in any law enforcement database anywhere. It requires only that someone in their extended family tree submitted their DNA to a consumer database. And statistically, in 2026, almost everyone has a relative who has done exactly that. C.C. Moore, the forensic genealogist who helped crack the Golden State Killer case and dozens of others, has been named in connection with the forensic analysis in Nancy's case. When C.C. Moore gets involved in a case, results follow. The glove led to a restaurant worker. The helicopter found nothing it would confirm publicly. But the hair at Quantico is a different category of evidence entirely. Here is the full picture at 100 days. Not the dramatic version, the honest one. No identified suspect, no charges, no arrest. Confirmed by Newsweek as recently as May 18, 2026. Investigators say there is still no specific suspect they are closing in on publicly. The Pima County Sheriff has confirmed that communication with the Guthrie family has been handed entirely to the FBI. The Sheriff's Department is no longer the family's point of contact. The FBI has officially assumed all liaison duties. Sheriff Nanos told 13 News at the 100-day mark that he believes at some point in time they will make an arrest. And whoever that individual is, that individual will have a right to a fair and impartial trial. At some point in time. Not this week, not next week, at some point. Those are not the words of a man who knows an arrest is imminent. They are the words of a man who believes in the process even when the process is slow. And the process is slow. CBS News reported it exactly that way. Former FBI investigative specialist Steve Pack told them directly, 100 days feels like forever to a family. In investigative terms, it can still be early. Still early. 100 days into the most watched missing person case in America. And an experienced former federal investigator is saying the investigation could still be in its early stages. Think about what that means for the signal sniffer, for the glove, for all the technological breakthroughs that generated coverage and then quietly went nowhere. The investigation was never going to move at the speed of social media. It was always going to move at the speed of forensic science. And forensic science, as Sheriff Nanos said himself, moves at a snail's pace, but it moves in one direction, forward. Let me come back to the pacemaker one more time, because what that device represents to this investigation is something that gets lost in the coverage of signal sniffers and detection, ranges, and Bluetooth frequencies. 6 to 7 years of battery life remaining. Confirmed by investigators working with the manufacturer, that pacemaker has been running every single day since February 1st. Every hour, every minute, every 2 to 3 minutes it broadcasts its unique fingerprint into the air. It does not get tired, it does not get scared, it does not run out of things to say. It is not a GPS. Dr. Srihari Naidu, a cardiologist who analyzed the case publicly, confirmed that clearly. Pacemakers cannot be used to track a person's location, but the pacemaker has been logging. Its internal memory holds a record of every cardiac event since the moment it lost connection with Nancy's phone at 2:28 in the morning of February 1st. Every timestamp, every reading, every significant physiological change registered by the device since that moment. That record cannot be accessed remotely. The monitoring channel disconnected when Nancy moved beyond 15 feet of her phone. The only way to read what that device has stored is to be physically present with Nancy, to find her, to bring her home, which means the pacemaker is not just evidence of what happened on the night she was taken. It is a reason to keep looking. Every day that passes, the internal record grows. Every day adds to the log, and the investigators who find Nancy will not just find a missing 84-year-old woman. They will find a witness that has been keeping records for every minute of every day since she was taken. Morgan Wright said it directly. The pacemaker is the most unbiased witness we have, because it is sending telemetry data that has no reason to lie, no reason to protect anyone, no motive, no fear, no agenda, just a record, patient, waiting, counting. I want to say something directly to anyone watching this who has been following this case since the beginning. The signal sniffer was not a failure of the FBI's will. It was a combination of geographic uncertainty, technical limitation, and experimental technology deployed before a more effective version was ready. The glove DNA was not evidence of a poor investigation. It was one of 16 gloves collected near the scene, almost all of which turned out to belong to investigators themselves. Finding the one that didn't and testing it quickly was the right call. The result was disappointing. The process was correct. What remains is the hair at Quantico. The device logs from the manufacturer. The genetic genealogy analysis being conducted by some of the most capable forensic scientists in the country. And a pacemaker with 6 to 7 years of battery life. Still running. Still broadcasting, still keeping its record. Sheriff Nanos told 13 News something at the 100-day mark that I want you to hold on to. He said they are working to separate all the different DNA found inside Nancy's house and identify who it belongs to. He said it moves at a snail's pace. He said that is exactly what his investigative team needs it to do, because they want to ensure they are doing it right, not only to avoid arresting the wrong person, but to ensure they are able to properly prosecute whoever was involved. Properly prosecute. That phrase tells you where this is going. They are not just trying to find Nancy. They are building a case that will hold up in court, a case that cannot be dismantled by a skilled defense attorney, a case built on DNA and digital forensics, and a pacemaker that has been logging evidence every minute since February 1st. That takes time. It is supposed to take time. And when it is ready, it will be airtight. If you are watching this and something has been sitting in the back of your mind since the end of January, do not scroll past it. a late drive at an unusual hour, a conversation that felt wrong, something you saw near the Catalina foothills that didn't quite make sense at the time, something you heard. Someone who acted differently after February 1st. Do not talk yourself out of it. Do not decide it probably doesn't matter. The FBI is reviewing every tip, every single one. They have confirmed that their tip assessment process is operating around the clock. They have confirmed that leads are still being pursued, that every detail matters, that the one call that breaks this case open could come from anyone watching this video right now. Call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Anonymous, no name required, no way to trace it back to you. The reward has grown to more than $1.2 million. Savannah Guthrie added $1 million of her own money. The FBI added their own reward on top of that. Someone knows where Nancy is. Someone always knows. Nancy Ellen Long Guthrie, born January 27, 1942, a woman who raised 3 children after her husband died in a foreign country. A woman who spent 50 years building a life in a house in the Catalina foothills. A woman who tended her garden and sat on her porch and went to church every Sunday morning without fail, and watched the desert evening settle and never once imagined that someone was out there studying the rhythm of her life, learning her routine, planning against her. She did not deserve this. She deserved to grow old in peace. She deserved to be safe in her own home. She deserved to watch more desert evenings from that porch. She deserves to come home. On Mother's Day, May 10, 2026, Savannah Guthrie posted a statement. She wrote, "We will never stop looking for you. We will never be at peace until we find you." A daughter speaking into silence, not knowing if her mother can hear her. 2 dead ends. A helicopter that flew for weeks and confirmed nothing publicly. A glove that led to a restaurant worker. And a strand of hair at the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, still being analyzed, still being compared, still being run through the genetic genealogy methodology that has broken cases cold for 4 decades. And inside all of that, through all the silence and the dead ends and the experimental technology and the slow forensic process, a pacemaker, still running, still broadcasting its unique fingerprint into the air every 2 to 3 minutes. Still counting every heartbeat since 2:28 in the morning of February 1st. Still keeping its record. Still waiting for someone to come close enough to hear it. The technology didn't find Nancy, but the evidence Nancy left behind will find whoever took her. Subscribe to True Crime Files documentary and turn on notifications, because when this case breaks, you need to already be here.